Hello again and welcome to the Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So before we start today's topic, I just want to say a huge thank you to, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Rainier Albert Villanueva for sending in these pictures of his Salamander command vehicle, which looks absolutely fantastic. I love a good little Salamander command vehicle. They get mentioned in the fluff quite a lot, especially in the Cypher's Kane books, and it's really good to see someone painting one up to a really high quality. So thank you for sending this picture in, and if anyone else has any pictures they want to send in, please post on my Facebook page. Now today we're going to be talking about a pretty well worn concept in the Imperial Guard, but it's something that has become especially true in 8th edition, and it's this concept of being able to take a hit. Now what do I mean by that? Well, in pretty much every Imperial Guard battle report you've seen on this channel, I always say this phrase: the Guard have been hit hard, but they hit back even harder. And it's very true. Now the reason why this phrase just sort of naturally came about on my channel was because, especially at the beginning of 8th edition, Imperial Guard were almost always guaranteed to go second. Now things have improved a little bit with, obviously now, if you deploy last, the opponent only gets +1 to the dice roll. But that still means, in the majority, I would say in the vast majority of games of 40k that I play now, I'm still going second with my Imperial Guard. And I just tend to find I get seized on a lot, or my opponent will generally win the roll-off to go first, which is fine. But it has meant that I've had to build this ability to take a hit, to take a punch to the gut into my Imperial Guard list. It's almost one step further than the concept of redundancy. Okay, because there used to be a general rule, which was if it's worth taking once, if you're a guard player, if it's worth taking once, it's worth taking 3 times, because the idea was that one would get destroyed, one would fail, and one would succeed. If you took a unit, it's worth taking 3 times. So, but now with 8th edition, I tend to find that this needs to be taken one step further, and it's not a case of if it's worth taking once, it's worth taking 3 times. That's no longer good enough anymore. That's no longer sufficient, because now I'd say if it's worth taking in your list, it's worth taking 4 or 5 of a unit. So if it's worth if in your list that you're building, if you're thinking of taking a Leman Russ, if it's worth taking 1 Leman Russ, then it's worth taking 4 Leman Russes, 5 Leman Russes. No doubt about it. If it's worth taking, if it's worth taking a squad of Bulgrins, like a squad of 3 Bulgrins, screw that. You take a squad of 10 Bulgrins, for example. You max it out now. You take as many, whatever you're trying to include in your list, if it's worth taking once, you absolutely max it out. And the reason for this is I have found this time and time again, and it's one of the biggest mistakes I see people making, especially new players down the club who have got their hands on our guard army. And one of the biggest mistakes I see them make is them only taking 3 of something. And Leman Russes are a really good example. And you guys have seen it plenty of times in my battle reports. Because I like to, in case any of you are wondering, well, why in your battle reports you're not taking the most hardest list you can get, I do like to try and present quite a nice, balanced battle report. I don't like things to be complete steamrollers. Although at the same time, and I also like, in my battle reports, I like to try new things out. Because I talk about my bread and butter units on the channel all the time, but my battle reports are a chance for me to experiment, to try some different things out, to put some more interesting units down on there. Because realistically, otherwise, guys, my battle reports would all feature the exact same lists, which I found to be most effective, which is 200 guardsmen backed up by 5 to 6 Leman Russes. That would be the battle report every single time, because that is a really powerful list. But anyway, in theory, that's well, not in theory, in practice, it's a very good list. But anyway, so not to get distracted. So, yes, the reason it's so important is because I find, as is shown in this battle so many times, is if you need to take 4 of something, because you have to, and like we said, usually in Rust as an example, you need to take 4, because if you only take 3, 1 is going to get killed on the first turn, and 2 Leman Russes isn't enough to get the job done. Because, and I think the reason this is the case is the way, in 8th edition, the way wounding things works, and the way armor saves work, and the way the number of wounds that models have. So previously, you could get away with just taking 3 Leman Russes, because if 1 blew up, it didn't really matter, because you still had your other Leman Russes that could fire a battle cannon shell into a squad of Space Marines, and you get that direct hit, and you could just wipe out a squad. And like one Leman Russ very easily on its own could just wipe out a squad of Marines. With a lucky hit, could just immobilize or cripple or destroy a single a vehicle in one go. Back in previous editions, there was this one-hit wonder capability where you would just launch vanquish a shell into something. I used to love them in 6th and 7th edition. They were a bit of a hidden gem. They weren't great, but they had some good uses. And one of the great things that vanquish shells could do is if they could just smash into a vehicle and just blow it up. Now, obviously, they can't do that. Nowhere near. And that's the way with 8th edition works now. It's very difficult to one-shot something. It's not impossible. There are weapons out there that just one-shot a heavy vehicle. But for the Guard, we don't really have that capability anymore. We grind our opponents down. And what I tend to find is if you focus fire from 2 Leman Russes onto one target, you might damage it, you might even cripple it, but you probably won't kill it. Okay? But if you focus fire 3 Leman Russes onto something, nearly guaranteed you're gonna kill it. 3 Leman Russes focusing on one enemy key unit, one enemy main battle tank will just... That's it, get rid of it. Especially if one of them is a tank commander and he's able to issue orders for some rerolls to hit. Or if the Leman Russes are conquerors and they're in 24-inch range. Yeah, absolutely no doubt. Now, that's why it's really important to take 4 Leman Russes now, I find. I'm using Leman Russes as an example, but it applies to things like basilisks. I'm trying to think of some other heavy hitters like heavy weapon teams, but not just like we're not just talking the 3-man teams. We're talking like 4 squads with like las cannon plasma, that kind of thing. So you used to be able to just get away with taking sort of 3 las plas, 3 autocannon grenade launcher, 3 missile launcher, grenade launcher, some melt. You used to get away with a bit of each. Now it's like you take 4, 5, 6 infantry squads, all with las plas, no questions asked. You go for it because you're going to lose 2 or 3 infantry squads straight away. You're going to lose 1 or 2 Leman Russes straight away. So you need to have that redundancy. And it used to be a case of, this is sort of what I want to sign off on. This is how 8th edition, and now it's been we've had over a year of 8th edition now. The dust has settled. Even with all the changes, general trends have appeared. Guard redundancy in the Imperial Guard used to mean you had to take 3 or 4 units because that would guarantee that would allow, because you'd just be missing half the time, blah blah blah. Now that's not so much a case. Now, with the way 8th edition seems to work, now it seems to be the case of you need to take 3 or 4 or 5 of these Leman Russ tanks or these tough damage dealing units, because you need to be able to absorb the enemy damage. It's no longer a case of you need that many to be able to output damage. It's now a case of you need to take that many units to be able to withstand the enemy firepower. Slight, subtle change. Slight, subtle difference. But it is also a very important one. So there you go, guys. So that's just this case of redundancy, this case of of being able to take that first turn Sucker Punch. Guard are one of the few armies that can absorb an Alpha Strike quite well because our stuff is quite cheap. And I guess that's what a lot of people complain about Imperial Guard, saying, oh, your stuff's too cheap, your stuff's so point efficient. And it's a case of, yeah, but guys, you have to understand that in the majority of games, and obviously a codex should be balanced around what it's going to be dealing with the majority of the time. In the majority of games, the Imperial Guard will be going second, which means in the majority of games, the Imperial Guard, after the turn 1 dust has settled, will be playing a 2,000 point game with only 1,500 points, because you'll lose, you could lose a quarter of your army very easily in one turn. So that's why Imperial Guard's effective. That's a different topic for a different conversation, different video. If anything, just to summarize, guys, if you are finding that you're taking 2 or 3 Lehman Russes and they're not doing anything in each game, you need to take an extra Lehman Russ or 2. So if you're finding your Basilisks aren't doing anything, you take an extra Basilisk or 2. It just basically, if you're taking 3 damage dealers, toy breakers in your list, you need to up that to 4 or 5 or maybe even 6. You can mix Basilisks or Manticores and Lehman Russes interchangeably, but that's what you need to do. So, hope this video has been useful. It's this sort of evolution of redundancy. Please leave lots of comments. Tell me what your guys' experiences are, because this is just what I've found, that I always end up losing 1 or 2 Lehman Russes or Basilisks in the first turn. Are you guys finding the same thing? Please leave lots of comments, and I'll see you guys next time.